E-L-O-E-J, a little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world at breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome, everybody. Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Master Spas, S Fuels, Hoka, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Quintana Roo, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest is the founder and CEO of Form Smart Swim Goggles, Mr. Dan Eisenhardt. Dan, how you doing, bud? Long time no chat.
I'm doing great, Bob. It's great to be on again. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I am so excited that we'll actually be going back to Kona in a few weeks. That's going to be a lot of fun.
I know, watching the background there. I miss that place so much. So I look forward to it as well.
So while you're studying for your MBA in British Columbia, you came up with the idea of a goggle with augmented reality in it. And at that point, how realistic was it to even think about something like that could actually be a possibility?
Well, this was 2006. It was the fall of 2006. I had not even received my first iPhone yet. So I don't think it was very realistic, to be honest.
And it wasn't real. But as a swimmer, as a longtime swimmer, an elite level swimmer, All-American, you felt that there was something missing from swimming. You felt like, you know what, goggles are great, but there's got to be something better than this.
That's right. I mean, I was asked by by the professor there of the entrepreneurship program where I was participating to come up with an idea that I was passionate about and that also solved a real problem. And I asked, well, does it have to be achievable today or tomorrow? He said, no, it doesn't matter whether you know the solution or not. It just you have to be able to formulate the problem and then visualize a solution. And that's kind of what I did. And I had a feeling that it was possible to do it. I just didn't know how those goggles would end up looking, or what type of sensors we had to put in there, or how you'd even solve for accuracy and all those other things that we later had to tackle. But yeah, that definitely the passion was there, and I think the vision was there.
And what did your professor think of your presentation?
He thought it was great, but we at that time we ended up already halfway through the course. We bumped into a lot of obstacles, so we could already see this was going to be very difficult to pull off in 2006, and we ended up pivoting, so to speak, into ski goggles.
Right.
Already doing that course, so it ended up being a product initially for ski goggles, which we then took outside of the program and started a company and made a bunch of products for skiing. So yeah, it went well. That went well, but swimming had to wait a few years before that was achievable.
Swim goggles are basically a mobile home on your face. That thing is gigantic. You got plenty of room for displays and things like that. Swim goggles are a little smaller. Was that really that's the big issue, right? Trying to get everything into something that small.
That was the biggest issue. And right after that was price point, where goggles usually are $20, and people were back then even paying $200 for ski goggles. And apart from being much roomier as well, that meant we could put in a bigger battery. And we knew that we had to have, at least, 8 to 10 hours of battery in a pair of smart swim goggles as well. And we wanted to have a see-through optical that sort of augmented reality solution, which also was not completely, possible back then. So yeah, there was a number of things that together just made it really difficult to pull off in those early days.
And so Recon, that was the name of the company in terms of the ski goggles?
Yeah, that was the name of the company that I eventually came out of that program. And we launched the first ski goggle. That was the world's first consumer heads-up display. We launched that in 2010. And it had a little monitor at the bottom of the ski goggles, and you could then see how fast you were going. And eventually we built in connection to your mobile phone as well. You could see text messages and ski resort maps. And we even had later on GoPro cameras that could deliver their camera feed into your point of view inside the goggles. So it became quite high-techy. And I still ski with those goggles today, the later version of them.
That is so cool. And then you sold to Intel in 2015. And a lot of times when people sell their company, other people come in who don't necessarily, they believed in your vision, but sometimes they take it in a different direction. How did that work out with Intel?
Yeah, Intel was actually the most unlikely buyer I think I could have thought of when we started the company. I never thought Intel was going to buy a product company. But at that time, they were really looking to invest in wearables. They had a whole division called New Devices Group with thousands of employees where they had made a ton of acquisitions. And they were trying to see if this was something they were going to own, because they kind of missed the boat on the smartphone revolution. In terms of the chip provider to smartphones, Qualcomm ended up winning that. And they were still much more prevalent in data centers and PCs and so forth, where they had 90% market share. So they were trying to see if they could start or kickstart this new sort of wearables category. And of course, you can't ignore heads-up displays for a category in wearables. And they saw us as somebody that was a pioneer, a trailblazer in the consumer market, that I could come in and help, lead that what they call the head-worn division of multiple types of wearables that sit on your face.
I remember around that same era, a couple of different groups came to me with sunglasses for cycling, right? That had power and all sorts of other things in there. Was that something you guys were getting into as well?
Yeah, we did get into that, and we actually made a product called Recon Jet, which had a little screen as well. And we made our own sunglasses for that product. And that was designed for cycling primarily, but could be used in multiple applications, including running and even sailing and a bunch of other sports through a platform that we had, an Android platform where developers could develop basically any app for that device. And we launched that when was that? In spring of 2015, and then Intel purchased us a couple of months later.
Right.
But that product I was very excited about product, but it was still early days. It was a little bit on the bulky side still.
It was bulky. I remember trying those guys.
Yeah.
So you left in 2016, and when you left, did you right away think, okay, I'm going to go my dream is to do the goggles. That's what I'm going to do.
I would say the night of the acquisition closing, I was already thinking about how I could make this happen for swimming, because it is my passion. It's where I started out being a competitive swimmer for so many years, coming from a family of swimmers, going all the way back to my granddad. I had been dreaming about this throughout this journey with Recon, I was very passionate about Recon Instruments and skiing and cycling, but swimming is really my home. So yeah, it was there was the night of, I was already thinking about an architecture for the swimming goggles. Now, with all the knowledge that I had accumulated through launching those products in skiing and cycling. And
what was the process then in terms of creating form, and then realizing, okay, we've got something here that it's my vision, but it's also a lot of people understand that this will help their swimming a ton. Because basically, you've got a coach in your goggles, which is huge.
Yeah, we do. And the first thing that facilitated this was that I had negotiated a carve-out in the sale to Intel that swimming was something that I owned, and they weren't interested in swimming. So that was like freedom to operate. That was the important first step. And then I ended up calling up a couple of key architects from the Recon days that had left the company for personal reasons. One had moved to Australia, and the other was working for another company. And so they weren't at Intel at the time. And I called them and said, do you guys want to start up a proof of concept with a swimming goggle? And they said, of course. So we kind of started working already while I was at Intel for the next year and a half, and started to prototype. And that's when I could see that this was going to actually be feasible. So I left Intel about 18 months after the acquisition.
Was that scary to go off and start your own thing, when obviously you're pretty secure where you're at when you're working for Intel?
To me, it's exhilarating. It's more scary for me to sit in a big company, to be honest, because I want to obviously innovate and make products. I'm at heart an entrepreneur and a product person. So for me, that was a very easy decision to make. So
I've always felt that triathletes are sort of the early adopters, where we'll try anything. Where a lot of times, if somebody's a hardcore swimmer, hardcore cyclist, hardcore runner, they sort of adopt later, after it's been proven by the triathletes that it works. Was triathlon one of your first targets?
it was definitely one of my first targets. And I already had that experience from the Recon days. The first target for the cycling sunglasses was also triathletes, and we were already working with a bunch of triathletes. You know, Tim Don, I remember we did a video with Tim, and you know, he was using the cycling sunglasses there, and others. So yes, we knew that triathletes, they were primed, you know, early adopters, and I think what's great about triathletes is that it's actually a big market. They're not just like, you know, 10,000. There's hundreds of thousands of them, or millions worldwide. And of course have some money to spend and are very particular about their sport and about metrics. So for us, you know, that was a natural for me to go down the same path already for this new product.
And when when the triathlete started in on it and realized that, okay, this is really special. What did you learn? A lot of times you learn from those athletes. Some of your early adopters, they come to you and say, this would make the product better. This works for me. What did you find out from these athletes that you ended up incorporating into the product?
Well, do you know what? We knew that we had to get to open water. That was one thing that we knew was important for triathletes. And if you can't offer some kind of open water functionality, then it's kind of something is missing. So we knew that. We knew that workouts, like guided workouts, having the ability to see like a structured workout in the water and swim against it, which is what triathletes are used to in cycling, indoor cycling, and also in running. That was something, a piece of feedback that we got. And then the ability to show heart rate, which we also implemented in a partnership with Polar. So all those feedback, all that feedback we took and implemented solutions for them.
And then by the time you did come out with the FormSwim app, you've got all these other potential partners with Strava and Training Peaks and Facebook. It was really sort of the perfect storm. All this stuff was there to help you expand the reach of the product.
Yeah, and I think those connections are important, right? Because we all live in, you know, Training Peaks and Strava, and making sure that we are where our customers are, you know, I think is an important lesson learned for any product company. And it makes it easy to be a customer, and it also gives you awareness and scale through these platforms, where you might be a runner or a cyclist and suddenly you see a tile pop up in Strava that says, hey, I just completed my FormSwim, and you're like, oh, that looks interesting, what's that? And they click on it, and then they go into our world. So it works really well for us.
How big is the Form community now?
Well, we shipped, I think, what is it now? Well over 50,000 units we've shipped now.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big community, and they're very passionate. And we have a lot of people that are swimming, you know, every day with our goggles. And the most active users are for sure the triathletes. And once you try these goggles and you've gotten used to having this information in front of you while you're swimming, you know, it's very hard to go to the pool without them. I think Lionel Sanders has said that a couple of times. He would actually drive back 10 miles if he's forgotten them at his house, and he'll get foam goggles and then go back to the pool. So that definitely rings true for me as well. I'm a little bit biased, but I agree with him.
Yeah, well, it's one thing for elite swimmers to say, hey, this is a great product. It's another thing for Lionel Sanders, who the swim has always been his weakness. And for him to basically say, I have Form goggles, that's my swim coach. Right? That's made a huge difference in my ability to stay with that lead group. And when he's staying with the lead group, it just changes the entire day. That has to make you feel pretty good when you know that somebody who doesn't call themselves a swimmer now does because of your product.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel really good, especially with Lionel. I remember I had done my Ironman there with Challenge Athlete Foundation in 2019, and I think Lionel had a difficult race that year with nutrition, but he insisted on meeting our team and wanting to be part of somehow of what we were doing. And we had just launched the first product then, but that was simply because he liked the experience. He thought it could be meaningful and valuable to him as a triathlete, and that was his foremost, request. And more so than any sponsorship, he's not, that's secondary to him. He just wants to know if it can help him be a better swimmer, then he's in. So that was great to get that testimonial, that validation from somebody in a completely non-commercial context.
So you still racing? triathlons?
I haven't raced for a while. You know what? I signed up for a bunch of Ironman through the pandemic, and so before the pandemic hit, and then I had the Taiwan Ironman in February 2020, and then Woodlands, I think, in Texas, and both got postponed, and then they got canceled again the year after. And so I basically ended up training for a couple of Ironman and never got to do them. So I still have to find my next race, but I'm not done racing. I just got to find the next one and then train for it and hope that it's actually happening this time.
Now, if we're talking 50,000 users and a ton of triathletes, obviously, when you talk about junior swimming and all the age group swim, master swim programs, and that's obviously a way bigger pie. Are you making inroads with the core swimmers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're just a drop in the ocean now in terms of how many users we have compared to the potential. And we did design these goggles for the pool. That's really where we think that's where most people are spending most time. Maybe 95% of the time is spent in the pool training. And most are not on a team. About 90% of the market don't have a team or a coach, which is interesting. And you have 27 million pool swimmers in the US, 240 million swimmers worldwide, and 90% of them don't have a coach or a team. And even triathletes, who a lot of them have a coach, they spend, according to Slow Twitch, 70 to 80% of the time swimming alone. Because they're busy and they can't always make it on a team, and there's not enough room on teams and not enough teams for all triathletes to participate. So it is a problem for almost everyone that they're training alone. How do they get structure in the workouts? How do they get motivated and tracked and stay accountable? That's where we fit in.
So in the Form goggles, you have 1,000+ in-goggle workouts, but people can now customize their own workouts and try to set something up specifically for them.
Yeah, that's right. That was the top requested feature. And we launched that August 16th, where now you can go on our app and you can develop your own workout in a matter of minutes, or just take one of our 1,000+ workouts and hit the edit button, and you can just add an extra rep or add an extra set or whatever you want. So this also allows for coaches to do the same thing. They can create the apps for their athletes. And now there's an easy way. We call it the ERC mode for swimming. Right, just like when that happened for cycling, how easy is it today to get a workout from your coach? Yeah, it's automatic. You wake up, you go jump on your bike, and there it is. That's kind of what we want to do for swimming.
Yeah, and one of the positives is when you're out there in open water swimming on your own, which can be sort of scary, right, for people. Just having something there, something to look at, can really give you comfort. Have you heard that from people that just having something that's giving me how long I've been out here, my stroke rate, all that type of stuff is really, really powerful, and it really makes you feel more comfortable in a place that sometimes isn't the most comfortable to be in.
Do you know what I hear almost every time I talk to somebody who's tried our goggles in open water? And it doesn't matter what your skill level is. That's one of the first things that's like, yeah, actually, it was really comforting.
Yes.
To just have that display, and it's also the recognition of that's what you're looking at when you're in the pool. So that stays the same, even though you're out in the elements. So yes, we do hear that a lot. I sense it myself as well when I swim in open water. I love just having the metrics there. I can sort of zone into that, focus on that. Of course, you still have to be safe in open water. That goes without saying, but it is nice to have that displayed.
So have you sent a pair of a Form Smart Swim goggles to your professor to say, hey, this is what we talked about X amount of years ago. Here they are.
I probably should do that. I did stay in contact with him for some years. I ended up moving, I think, to the UK and became a professor there. I don't think he's a swimmer, but he doesn't know. He knows that I went on to actually do the swimming project. So he was quite helpful back then in terms of inspiring us to move along that project there and not get too stuck on something that couldn't be done at the time, but try and find something that could be done that was realistic and where the market was there. And then, of course, eventually you can always move into other markets. And that's kind of what we did.
Any of the Intel folks surprised at the success you've had on this?
Of course, I ended up hiring a lot of Intel folks, because what happened was after a few years, they actually ended up shutting down the whole division because they said we were not going to get into wearables anyway. And so all those acquisitions and all those thousands of people
Oh
end
my
up being let
God, you're
loose.
kidding. That's wild.
Yeah, that is wild. So that was good for me because I could then hire back. Basically, I think at one point half the team was ex-Recon. So it was sort of bringing the band back together. And but I do keep in contact also with other Intel employees that are former Intel employees that don't work at Form today. And I think I think they're just keen to see that there's actually a real use case for wearables. I think there's many use cases for wearables, and they're growing almost every day. You see something new, and you go, "Wow, that's really useful." But it's great to see something that's so night and day. It's like without having this display, you don't have access to real-time metrics. There's no alternative. And then with this display, you get all these experiences, and you become a better swimmer, and you start to love swimming even more. I mean, there's sort of it's quite easy for people to visualize that, even if they're not a swimmer, kind of where we fit in. And I think that's a breath of fresh air in this world where there's a lot of gadgets, maybe that, and it can be difficult sometimes to figure out exactly why you need something.
Yes.
But this is an easy one, I think, to explain.
Well, if you think about it, when you ride your bike, who would ever go out without their bike computer to know exactly where they are, how far they are into the ride, what their wattage is, all that type? You want those numbers. And for years, everybody was sort of swimming blind, except for the coach on the deck telling what you do, or the big pace clock on the side of the wall there. But it's changed everything. What's next? What's not in the Form Smart Swim goggles that you want in there?
Well, of course, coming up, sitting here and telling you what our roadmap is very risky. But what I can say is that I think you'll see more along the lines of activity leading. Like we solved activity tracking. And I think, activity tracking is so important to be accurate, and you can go back and see what you've done, and you can see how fast you're going compared to list length compared to the last length, and all the metrics are super important. But with workouts and also custom workouts, we now showed you, well, we're not just here to track you, we're also here to lead you.
Right, you're coaching,
guide you.
Yeah.
And so the coaching part of our platform, I think we're just at the beginning of what we can do with a real-time display that's kind of there when you need it and out of your way when you don't need it, because you can just kind of look through it and not take it in if you're not interested in the metrics. But that's really what I see as the whole industry in terms of the wearables industry and sports technology in general. Is the biggest challenge has been, how can we get closer to people's sort of attention, like be there when you need it, and not just something that is a distraction. Even running with the watch these days, is like, I'm so used to having the information there. Now I have to jump up and down that tiny little screen, and the battery is always on like a dim screen. And it's like, and I'm just like, why isn't it just like right there? Yeah. It's just so, and cycling too. So I do think that the whole industry, and I think sports and active lifestyle, is going to move in that direction of having easier access to relevant metrics and useful information that's telling you how to perform and how to improve. Like, what do you need? Like tips that you can get to make you improve faster.
Right. What will you be in Kona?
I will be in Kona. Yes. Not racing.
No. But that's even better. You can swim out to the coffee boat every day and just sort of hang out.
Yes, I definitely can. I will enjoy that quite a bit. I really look forward to it. Everything is booked, although it was hard to find accommodation this year. But it's so full there. But we found a good spot.
Well, it shows the sport is healthy. That's what we always like to see, is, a lot of people wanting to race and a lot of people wanting to be at the back of the world. We haven't been there since 2019. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but I'm just thankful that it's back.
Exactly. Dan, always a treat. Appreciate all the support of the sport. There's so many folks. The deterrent to getting into our sport is primarily the swim. It scares the crap out of people, right? If you and I go for a run and we get tired, we walk. If we go for a bike ride, we get tired, we walk. If we swim out in the ocean, we get tired, we die. That's a problem, right? So that getting new people into our sport is primarily getting them to feel comfortable in the water. And Form Smart Swim goggles, there's really nothing else that has given people comfort in the water like your product has. And I think it's helped bring a lot of brand new people in the sport, which obviously at the end of the day is what all of our responsibility is: bring new people into our sport and grow the best sport there is.
Yeah, I agree, Bob, and thank you for your support over the years. It's been great to have the partnership with you and Challenge Athlete Foundation, and we're just eager to continue developing new experiences and help grow the sport even more, even faster.
Love it. Dan Eisenhardt, the founder and CEO of Forum Smart Swim Goggles, has been our guest. Dan, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. See ya.